And we're going to hop into the Detroit Pistons, discussing their situation, what they built this offseason. All right. It starts off with these moves for the Detroit Pistons. They go out there and they part ways with Troy Weaver, the general manager, and the head coach, Monty Williams. They bring in Trajan Langdon as the new president. They bring in new head coach, JB Bickerstaff. This all follows the 14-win season that happened last year. When I look at the Detroit Pistons, here's what I'm going to say before I get into anything else. Good offseason. However, the changes need to stop. There is no way a young group of guys can find any form of continuity if you don't have sustainability, if you don't have consistency within your team and your organization. Young guys need consistency to develop. Young guys need veterans. Young guys need people that they can trust to help them. That is the exact opposite of what the Detroit Pistons have done. Firing coach after coach after coach, getting new GMs, changing the roster, changing who you're building around, drafting guys that then don't really make sense. They're not even playing guys that you draft high, switching the rotations and roles of these young guys consistently, time and time again, paying a ton of money for a head coach that you then fire the following year. All of these situations that keep on happening in Detroit, they needed to stop. I get it. This is the time to move on. You want to get rid of Troy Weaver? I agree. Good move. Monty Williams, you could debate that. Obviously, last year, the whole situation was a train wreck. I think he probably should have taken a year off before he went and took this job anyways, but they paid him a ton of money. So it is what it is. Not even that big of a deal. But this group now, Langdon and Bickerstaff, let them build this team and don't mess with them. Keep them in place for the foreseeable future. This team needs continuity. This team needs to have a situation where they are built together. They are built as a unit, and they actually can develop together. That's what needs to happen out there in Detroit, because it's been too much inconsistency since Cade Cunningham's got there to be able to ever see what this team's capable of. And that's never going to lead to success. And so when this offseason came, I said that the two biggest things I think the Detroit Pistons needed to do was, one, confirm that you are building around Cade and get him locked in. And on top of that, actually build around Cade. Not just have Cade as your best player and a bunch of dudes that just happen to be on the roster alongside him. No, get Cade Cunningham, his deal, get him locked in for the future, and actually build around him if you know what that means. And hopefully this new staff did it, and I think they did. They did a much better job at actually building around Cade Cunningham this offseason. Secondly, what you needed to do was get veterans. I don't understand this philosophy from front offices across the NBA that believe in this idea of, let's go get 13, 14, 15 young dudes and maybe one guy that's 25 years old or older. That is the most ridiculous formula I've ever heard of in the NBA, and I don't understand why it continues to occur. It does not work. We look at Houston Rockets, just most recent of the many, many examples you can look at. One year they have a ton of young dudes. They look like a train wreck, looks like an AAU team, was ridiculous to watch in terms of basketball. The following year, they're competent. They're a 500 basketball team. Why? They added veterans and they let young guys actually develop to have guys that help teach them and guide them along the steps. And that's finally what Detroit did this offseason. And I know a lot of people clown him. A lot of people make fun of the move. I love the move of Tobias Harris. I get it. He's not a superstar. Detroit wasn't going to get a superstar this year. So write that off. They had money to spend. Go get him. And if you look at all the rosters, I was thinking this through, is Tobias Harris more valuable to any other NBA team than Detroit? I think if he wanted to go anywhere where he would be the most valued, it would be Detroit. Why? Tobias Harris has played in countless playoff games. He's a winning, experienced veteran. He knows how to space the floor for Cade Cunningham and company. He's a guy that knows he's a good, high-character guy. He's played in high-stake games. He knows how to go through the regular season. And he's good. He's not superstar good, but he's good. He can get you, on this team, he could probably get you 18, 20 points a game. No doubt about that. And that's the perfect type of guy that Detroit needed to go get, and they got him. So I absolutely love this deal. So let's break down this roster then. You've got a roster now that consists of some veterans. Thank goodness. Let's break this down. First and foremost, leading the way at guard, you have Cade Cunningham. I just said you need to build around him. Here's the thing a lot of people are forgetting. Because of the situation that Cade Cunningham has been in over the past few seasons, and then due to the injuries in which he's had to go through and sustained, a lot of people have forgotten, and I understand why, but have forgotten how good Cade Cunningham is. Cade Cunningham is not just a good player, and I get it. We haven't seen him fully be able to play at a high level yet, this, that, and the third. I get it. So I don't want to blame anybody for that theology. However, Cade Cunningham is a guy that I truly do believe can be a premier superstar in this NBA. It going to probably take some time. You have to get in the right position, build the team around him, but he has the talent to be that guy. And that's the hardest thing about building a team is to get that guy. Well, if you're the Detroit Pistons, you should be able to sit in confidently saying, we got that guy. Now we just have to get the other guys, which is a much easier thing to say and go do than getting that top dog. And so I think if you acknowledge, and they did, they signed that extension, and you're starting to build a team around him, that Cade Cunningham is your guy, and you actually build this whole team around him, this is a team that could be set up for a lot of success. So at the helm of everything, you've got Cade Cunningham running the show. Hopefully he's healthy and people get experience and see just how good he is. Now, next up, you've got an option on how to build this team. And I know JB Bickerstaff, he's got a pretty good track record at developing some guys. He's going to be able to figure this out for them. But what I see here is an opportunity where you should be able to have veterans here in this lineup. But as I said, you've drafted oddly the past few years. You haven't really drafted around Cade. You drafted for the top guys that you perceive to be the top guys. And in doing so, if you want to play your young guys a lot of minutes, it's going to affect the ability of Cade to be that guy and go everywhere, because a lot of times these guys aren't really capable of shooting the ball. And so when I see this team, you have an option. In terms of the perfect scenario to go around Cade Cunningham and build around him right now for this season alone, you could say rolling out a team of, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris, Duren could be an option, right? You get yourself 3 floor spacers and then a lob threat in Duren. That could make sense, but I wouldn't say that's the option to go with yet. I really do want to see what Ivy can do. The whole situation he went through last year was not good. It was uncalled for. He should have been the starter, and we should have been able to experience this last year. So if we can get a situation now where Ivy's playing with Cade and we can see them in the backcourt together, that's what I actually want to see to start the year. So you have Cade Cunningham, you have Ivy working alongside him. I already locked in Tobias Harris. He's going to be the starter there, and Duren's obviously starting at the center spot. So then you leave that other spot open. Essentially, you're talking about the small forward spot, and you've got a few different guys. Ausar Thompson is the guy that I'd say starts the season. Ausar already have 1 year of experience, and you have to hope he expanded his three-point shooting. If not, he doesn't really fit with the starters group. And, it's not that he's a bad player, it's just that he doesn't fit with his team, and he might have to go find another team eventually in a trade. But you want to start off with these young guys, give them a chance to see how they perform and how they play together. But there is a guy waiting in the wings that they just drafted the top pick this year that I think fits this team honestly a lot better, and that's Ron Holland. Also not the best shooter in the world, but he does have that length. He has athleticism. I could see his play style fitting in a little bit better than maybe Ausar does. But, it's something he's going to be able to develop, and we have to figure that out over time. I do love Ron Holland's game. I love his potential. I thought a year ago he was the best player heading into the draft. Now, obviously the season progressed. He fell down my board a little bit. But I do still think Ron Holland's a very, very good player, very high on him. And so I think that this could be a good fit for Detroit over time. Now let's head over to the bench, though. You're looking at a situation where Isaiah Stewart's obviously the backup big man for them. And then you have Paul Reed you added in as well. They're going to kind of split the roles. However, the guy that I also do value that's around the situation is Simone Fontecchio, because they added him back. They extended him, re-signed him for agency, I should say. And he's a guy that I do like a lot because he's a floor spacer. He's a good veteran. He's a guy that knows how to play the game the right way. And he plays great alongside Cade. We got to see a little bit of flashes last year of him playing with the Detroit Pistons. He should have been signed back, and I'm glad they did. And he ultimately is another guy. Hypothetically, you could say could be that starting small forward 2 to start the year. I don't know. I think he's more so just hold him for the bench, but he's possible for that role. However, so you're kind of looking at a situation where you have Paul Reed, Isaiah Stewart, and Simone kind of battling out those forward and center spots there. So that's what I'm looking at for the Detroit Pistons. And you then talk about another guy. You have Bobby Klintman. He's going to be a developmental guy this year. I don't think he's going to get a lot of minutes. He's going to be in the G League for the most part. I already said Tim Hardaway Jr. He could be a guy that you send over and start, but him being in the bench role as a 6-man role would be huge for them, and he's a great floor spacer veteran. Once again, people have to realize this is another guy that people don't necessarily always like. But Tim Hardaway Jr. is a veteran. He's a guy that can shoot the ball at a high clip. Now, he shoots a lot of the time and isn't always the most accurate, but when you're really looking at the Detroit Pistons, just keeping it quite frankly honest here, the Detroit Pistons weren't going to attract the top guys. So if you were going to put the pressure on the Pistons to go get the top tier guys in free agency or via trades, that wasn't going to happen. So what you had to do was you had to say, okay, these were the needs for the team. How do we equip them and get them to the best of our ability? And they did just that. Tim Hardaway fills a massive hole that they needed. They needed veterans, they needed shooters that got them both in one right there. So I do love Tim Hardaway Jr. in that position. Then Marcus Sasser. Let him be the backup point guard. He's a veteran in essence of his age. Obviously, he's only going to be going into his second season, but I love his game. He's a guy that I truly think is going to be a 10-plus year NBA veteran as the backup point guard. You look at the likes of an Ish Smith type of player, and I'm not saying he exactly plays like him. I'm just saying in that model type of what the career output looks like. Monte Morris. You look at those type of guys. Those are the type of guys that I see him having a career like. And then you have some bench guys I also discussed. You have Wendell Moore came over. I'm not really expecting much from him. Young, didn't get a lot of minutes before, plays defense hard again, but that's more so what you're going to get out of him. And then you have your two-way deals, Dennis Jenkins, and you have Tosan. Those two guys are guys that, will get some minutes potentially, most of G League. Obviously not, that you don't have much expectations of them being two-way players at this point in time. But that's what I got for the Detroit Pistons. So when you talk about what this team could possibly be, this isn't a contender, obviously. Is this team even a playoff team? I don't really know. The East is not very good. So you could get hot. It could all come together all of a sudden this year, and you have a team where everybody breaks down, everyone's healthy, and you get into the playing game. But if you're a Detroit Pistons fan, this is what you need to look forward to for this roster. Can this team take a jump? Can this team stop being a laughingstock and play good basketball, look good, play as a team, and actually heading into the 2025-26 season, have a little bit of excitement about them and actually believe that, hey, this could be the team that we actually do something with now. We got our core guys. We know who plays well together. We got everything kind of figured out now. Now we can build around this team and actually build towards something that we have an idea about. This is still a little bit more of a feeling out process for the season. So I don't want there to be expectation this is going to be anything spectacular. But I think they have it, and I want to see it to confirm it, that this Detroit Pistons team has solidified a foundation. They build around that, and then they go and actually get prepared for the 2025-26 season in which they can make a playoff push and potentially become somebody that actually is a factor to some extent. So that's really what you got to look for the Detroit Pistons. Improvement, do they look better? I don't even know if it's going to be as big of a jump as the Houston Rockets made this past season, where they go from a pitiful team to a 500 team. But can this team get to the 30-win mark? Can this team get to at least the 25, right? But can we get to the 30? If that's the goal, that they can get to the 30-win mark, I think that'd be a very, very big success for the Detroit Pistons this season, and set themselves up for maybe adding another guy in the draft or trading for somebody or whatever the case may be. And like I said, getting ready for 2025-26 when everything kind of comes together. Cade becomes officially that guy around the world and everybody knows it. And this team has officially solidified themselves as, hey, Ivy maybe is the second best player. Tobias is a great role player. Duran, whatever the case may be, those core guys are then established and put into place and people know it. So that's what I got for the Detroit Pistons, a season that they could obviously look to develop in. But like I said, I think the foundation has a chance to be established this year at last.